before we leave, I'd like you to give any words of wisdom or advice to the young filmmakers out there. And I think finding people that you trust is one of the number one things in anything you do, and then not micromanage. Someone very famous, I won't mention his name,
who was it?
Once told me, hire people smarter than you, Lou, and do not micromanage. Let them do their thing. Make them accountable if things aren't done correctly, but do not micromanage. So I think that's a very valid and important.
I think in different countries and different cultures, there's different approaches, and I think that the younger you are, the less experience that you have, you really should listen. You should listen to those who, but, you know, you make up your own mind and you decipher and you work out exactly what the information that you're processing, and you obviously have to go your own route. But for young filmmakers, the first thing I would say is to see movies, to watch films, to visit film festivals, watch films that don't make it onto the film circuit, into your local cinemas, the film festivals, even online, just the ability to see what's being made. I'm going to just branch off here for a second, because a couple of years ago I was asked to sit on the film jury for the 30th African Film Festival in Verona. And you know, I consider myself very well versed in cinema. I've seen things from all over the world. I sat for 10 days with and I must have seen, out of, let's say, the 45 films, about 43 of them were excellent quality films, excellent, that would stand on their own in any country. And the quality of the work was outstanding.
Were the directors only from Africa? Were they
only African? No, from Maghreb, from Sub-Saharan.
Okay.
I mean, but the continent of Africa, everywhere from Egypt to Tunisia to Kenya, Ethiopia, Mozambique, Rwanda. I saw a film from Chad that I thought was probably one of the best films ever made. I mean, I can't begin to say how amazing this film was.
Why don't we get a chance to see those type of films here?
No
Why?
money, distribution. Distributors in every country are, okay, distribution. Distribution is broken down into 2 or 3 different areas. There's the super commercial American major distribution system, the studios. They basically control, I would say, on a world scale, let's say 90% of what's shown in cinemas. The 10% is really made up locally of the various different territories, domestic countries, and their independent distributors. In some countries, like Italy, for example, the American studio system has 70%. So it's a little bit less in Italy. France, it might be more or less the same. The UK is more tended to be American. And so that's...
Here in the United States?
No, it's 99%
Okay.
studio driven, as you can see by the films that are out there, and
the
the budgets that these studios are using towards them. Now, saying that, there is a great, and there has been, and it's ever growing, diverse outlet of film. And those are gone through websites and again festivals, and that's what I'm saying, is that you should seek out these films. It's but the question is, how do you get to know about them? That's really the question, and the distribution system can be quite difficult. There's on the independent side, because you've got independent American films and you've got independent international films, and I would say in any given country, the independent American films, and let's say in America, the independent American films would take precedent over an independent film coming from Rwanda. And you have to find a very, very brave distributor and a very brave exhibitor who will put their money where their mouth is and show a film from Chad for a week and have the money to advertise it and be able to pull the people in. But that one film from Chad, you're going to learn a lot. You'll learn a hell of a lot more than you would be sitting through Iron Man 3.
Wow, and I think, and I don't want to complete the circle, but that almost brings us full circle, because that's what we're about here at the People's Film Festival. That's exactly the reason this festival was started, to give those type of films a place to breathe and gain a life. So I'm very, very happy to hear you say that, because that was the whole purpose behind this.
I went about 6 months ago. I was asked to give a lecture at the University of Brescia. And the question that I was asked and I had to pose was the future for young people, young Italian people in cinema. And so I sat and addressed a class of 60 students, and I said to them,
Filmmakers?
all young
Okay.
prospective
Okay.
filmmakers, and I sat there. I stood up and I said, okay, well, I can say two things. The future of young people in cinema today, for Italians and maybe for students from all over the world, I have two things to say: learn Chinese and go to China.
You know what?
And then I went, no,
Okay,
that's a
but
joke.
I'm actually kind of with you. Speaking of which, I've been to China twice in the last year, so go ahead.
No,
Absolutely.
well, I didn't want to disparage them, but they, unfortunately, on a I don't want to say a professional, I want to say on a larger budget scale, that's where things are going to be going in that direction, just specifically for costs reasons. But on the independent level, I've found also, and this starts even with Erwin and Fran, and any of the more of the independent projects that I take on, it's just the thought. You start off with a thought, and you just make a film that starts from that thought. You know, you put it down on paper, you start writing, you start expanding, you start talking to people of how you will achieve this film. And I've constantly been followed up by a lot of the students that was one of the universities, but I've been constantly in touch with a lot of the students. And I said it's like painting a picture. You need a canvas and you need some paint. It's that first stroke. That once you've done that first stroke, everything else falls into place, basically. And so I was trying to explain to another student, I said, you know, I had a conversation with a filmmaker from the UK saying, we were having a conversation about white vans, white trucks. And we were saying that that in England, that he had observed that white men drove white trucks. So we were like, okay, exactly. I'm like thinking, okay, great. And sure enough, in the UK, I'm standing on street corners, I'm looking, I said, he's absolutely right. There's only white men driving white vans. I was like, this is really weird. I go back to Italy and I'm thinking, do you think it's the same thing in Italy? So I'm standing there and I realize there's like white men driving white vans. I said, there's something really weird going on. So at the same time, I was talking to this student. I said, I had this really bizarre conversation with this other filmmaker, and it really stuck in my head. And I said, you know something? You got a camera? Yes. Let's go out. Let's stand on a few street corners, and we're going to shoot white vans. It's going to be a study. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take some of those scenes and we're going to slow them down and we're going to speed them up. We're going to try different lenses and we're going to add music to it. And then we're going to edit it in such a way, blah, blah, blah. I just said, you go off and do it once we've filmed everything. And he came back with a little tiny film about guys driving around in white vans and a character that walks through the screen every now and then. And it means whatever you want it to mean, or for it's the fact that it was done. It was the fact that someone had the idea, the thought, an artist, a filmmaker, and just going out to do it. There's nothing good or bad about it. It's
Right.
about doing it. It's up to whoever's watching it whether they like it or not. Also, that shouldn't be in the filmmaker's eyes. Film is a very, very personal experience, especially a documentary, and so it really comes from the heart. The heart from the filmmaker, and it comes for them first.
Right, you shouldn't be looking for an approval.
I think that's where a lot of filmmakers fall short because they're relying on. Let's also not forget they're under a certain amount of pressure from distributors.
Right. Money makers.
Exactly, and that's also a very big difference of the system in America compared to a lot of the other countries around the world, where in America it's an industry. So the people that are providing the money for your film, they have a certain amount of power to say, we want some more violence, or we want more naked women, or we want more this. And so a filmmaker who comes from another country is basically obliged to do that in order to work in America, to compromise their art, their thoughts, their politics, in order to get a chance to work in America. In Europe and the rest of the world, people make films because they want to make films. Yes, they go through the same processes of having to raise money, but I don't, and there's maybe a handful of American-styled producers that are demanding certain things, but filmmakers go out to make films because they want to make films, and they're not told that they need more sex or violence.
Wow, and let's hit upon the fact that today's generation has so many tools to their disposal that we didn't have 20, even 10 years ago. A person can pick up an iPad, their own phone, a Go camera, all of these type of things, and film anything, and decide to either piece it together and put it on YouTube, use it in some other way. Do you see that as good or bad? Do you see that as now anyone with any type of instrument is doing anything and calling it a film, a documentary, or is that an advantage we have now?
I think it's really important for people in general to find ways to express themselves, or at least attempt to. To be brutally honest, there's a lot of crap out there, but there's a lot of crap in Hollywood too. I mean, you know, it's a balancing act. I think that no, you're absolutely right. I think the tools are there. I think that I mean, I'm fascinated by the fact that you can buy a very decently priced camera and professionally shoot something that is a broadcast standard. And that's what's been going on in the industry for the last number of years. I think it's all good. It has to be good. I mean, there has to be, if there's more material and more people expressing themselves, it gives, ideas get bigger, ideas go smaller. I think it's good.
Good, I'm happy. Now, I need, because everyone in the room is dying to know, what is next for you? Is there anything that you can tell us now that you're working on, or anything we should look forward to? What?
Well, the Pinko bag for Ethiopia was very successful, and I've just returned from Peru and Ecuador for 2 other little films that are fair trade, eco-fashion, sustainable, backgrounded stories, and they're being edited right now, and I can't wait to see them.
Are you also working with your wife on that one?
Yes.
Great.
She see, that's the answer to the question. She's found the way to maintain a successful marriage by traveling and working and seeing the world.
That's how you do it. Okay.
Exactly. And again, it's down to the wife. And then I'm talking to some people about going to Tanzania to shoot a film about a non-profit organization that has financed a school at the foothills of Mount Kilimanjaro. So this is right at the beginning stages, and trying to, both groups, we're trying to work out how to proceed, in the sense that I'm fascinated by the project, and I'd love to see Tanzania, and I have some very good ideas about it. But on the other projects, you know, it's difficult. You know, I have to take calls from Brad Pitt. Schwarzenegger's calling me. You know, it's just tough.
I shouldn't laugh. You're serious.
Well, listen. You know, I says, hold on. Denzel's looking for me. I tell Denzel, listen, I can't do it this week. I'm busy.
Listen, if he's around the corner, you can invite him in. I'll interview him next.
Also, from Irwin and Fran, I was very, very lucky, very fortunate to get Dick Gregory into the film. And Dick and Irwin have a history, and that comes out in the film. Dick explains that if Irwin, and it's told very funny, because also Hugh Hefner recites the same story. Irwin recites. I've got all these different people reciting the same story from different viewpoints. But Dick explains that Irwin, had he not worked on a particular day at the Playboy Club in Chicago in 1959, 60, then Dick wouldn't have gotten his break. If Dick hadn't gotten his break, then black entertainment would be a very different story today.
We adore Dick Gregory here.
So so I was very, very fortunate. So again, while I was shooting with filming and recording Dick speaking, I was thinking during the filming, I was, oh my God, I've got an hour. I've got enough material to make a movie on Dick as well. You know, so a film. I think a filmmaker really has their mind is well, in my case, is constantly working on different things of what to do, how to do them. And a producer also, a good producer has 4 or 5 projects that they're developing. And usually what happens is 1 or 2 of them might gain momentum in certain areas, so your focus and energies kind of shift into that direction. Right. So I've got, I'm someone who also, I'm constantly contacted to read scripts and projects, and I'm constantly in contact with a lot of people, and so, you know, tomorrow might be something very different. But there's a lot of very interesting projects bubbling around.
The 2 biggest questions we get here from young filmmakers are the following. 1, should they put a time limit on a project, or should they keep that project open as long as it may take to complete? After a certain time, is it like it's not going to happen, move on? And the second question is, again, back to funding. Do they have the dream and then take it elsewhere and look for money? Do they keep it as small as possible, and then hopefully someone will see it and expand on it? Those are our 2 biggest questions we get from young filmmakers. Could you help us with either of those for the
I think it's depending on the nature of the project itself. Speaking from experience, again going back to Irwin and Fran, I thought after a year and a half that I'd gotten to a certain point where I thought that the film was ready. Something happened, and I actually reached out to Susan Sarandon, who's an old family friend of Irwin and Fran's, and I wanted to reach out to her specifically, actually looking for finance and getting her aware of the project. But by accident, or I don't know, it wasn't intentional. I had actually, in order to get in touch with her, I thought to ask her to narrate the film. Okay. My real intention really was to just get her aware of the project and let her know I was now in the post-production phase, and that I was looking for a little bit of finance. Perhaps she could help, or perhaps send me in another direction. And people in the movie business are very good. They're very able to send you, and you know, you have to process the information, they think about it, and then they'll say, oh, these people might be interested, this distributor might be interested. But with Susan, because I said, oh, would you like to narrate the film? I got a yes. So all of a sudden, I was like, okay, fantastic. Now I have to write a script, which wasn't part of the original plan. But the fantastic thing was, within a few months, I was back in New York in a recording studio with Susan, and I got Susan in the film. And
so from beginning to end, Irwin and Fran, how long would you say?
It's about 3.5 years.
Wow.
But the thing was, is that I was ready to start working on the post-production phase of the film. When she said yes to do the narration, all of a sudden it added another year because other things happened. And at the same time also, I wasn't expecting to, with Dick Gregory also, that was a nice surprise as well. I got very friendly with Irwin's agent, who is Dick's agent. And before I knew it, I was in Washington, D.C., hanging out with Dick Gregory, which was fantastic. But getting to the funding and the side, I think it all kind of depends on the nature of the film and the project, when to know it's ready. You know, 10 years is a little bit long to work on a project, although there are some filmmakers that start developing projects for years. This, on a script form, let's say producers and directors who buy books, buy option books and develop screenplays, they take years to develop, but that's the Hollywood studio system, and that's another side of it. Younger filmmakers who are working on smaller projects really shouldn't have the fear to go out and ask for money. They should look for it. They should start with friends and family and take it from there. To get an idea of budgeting, of finding material, of finding people, of putting it together. There's more recently, I know people who have raised money on Kickstarter for their productions, and I've heard some great stories. I've heard some bad stories. I've heard, I've heard all different scenarios.
Do you start with doing a little something to demonstrate, to show, or do you just tell an idea, or is there no method? Is there no whatever works?
Well, I think there's a lot of different methods and techniques. I found putting together a presentation, let's say, with a nice presentation with links, active links, very clean, succinct presentation that explains the project, what you're out to do, and how much money you're looking for.
And it comes across, I think, as more professional. People are more likely to invest in something that just looks a little more professional.
That's a modern approach, though. I mean, I've worked with a lot of commercials directors do that because they have to prepare treatments in order to when they're bidding for a commercial. So that's pretty standard, and advertising agencies are expecting a 1-page or a 2-page or a 3-page treatment. And I think that translates over to younger filmmakers with projects that, I mean, I also know people who think that they should shoot a teaser, or they should go out and shoot some material in order to use that. Personally, I think that's not the right way to go. But that's my opinion. I'm sure it's worked for a lot of other people. I think by doing that, you're kind of promising something that you might not be able to deliver. For example, casting. I mean, you're going to cast someone else in a teaser that you're hoping to get someone else, and so you're giving a visual. I'm not a big fan of that, but I know people do it. I know there's a reason why people do it. The other thing which is very interesting also, music video directors and commercial directors who want to get into feature-length films or feature-length subjects, they tend to go out and shoot a couple of short films, which they can show it around. Not for film festivals per se, but film producers and film finance people want to see that a director can tell a story.
Right.
That's really what yes, and a lot of short form directors successfully make beautifully visually well performed performance pieces scripted into 10-15 minute films, 1 or 2 of them, and they use that as a calling card to show that they could potentially tell a story that might last over 90 minutes.
Well, we are so excited that you allowed us to have Erwin and Fran. We are looking forward to a lot of other projects that you might be working on, and we want to say a special thank you for being here and allowing us to interview and pick your brain. A great brain it is. I am Luciera. This is the People's Film Festival, and we have been interviewed Mr. Jordan Stone. Thank you, Jordan, for being here.
Thank you, Lou. Thank you very much.